Alright, so Andor Episode 4 is out now, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the story, some of the Easter eggs that you probably missed, our theories for next episode, and also our reaction and review of this episode. Last week we left Cassian battling it out with the corporate authority, learned of his Kenari origin story, and saw him leaving Ferrix with Luthen into parts unknown. Still haven't a clue why Luthen wanted Andor. I mean, maybe it's a like Star Wars version of Taken. Liam Neeson, I mean Qui Gon, where are you, buddy? Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please force push that like button, and also don't forget to subscribe for reviews and recaps like this every week. With that out of the way, a huge thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Andor Episode 4. This week picks up immediately after that escape as we learn more about what Luthen actually wants with Cassian, offering him an almost opportunity to do something much bigger than his life than scraping by day to day. This is a similar call to the rebel cause that we've seen a handful of other times in previous Star Wars projects, with Andor recruiting Jyn Erso in Rogue One, Obi-Wan did it to Luke, Ezra Bridger got something similar, and it's sort of like poetry, they rhyme. Through this conversation, we discover that they are headed to the planet of Aldani, while Cassian reveals his past of fighting on Mimban and how the Empire had them fighting themselves. Now, two interesting things are that Mimban was the gruesome-looking battle that was featured in Solo, a Star Wars story, so this giant universe, it ain't so big after all, but that the Empire's tactics of oppressing the galaxy and using themselves against one another had been instilled for decades. The job Cassian is recruited for is finally revealed, being 5 days, big stakes, a prep team with a good plan, and paying 200,000 credits. Show me the money! Smash cut over to Coruscant, the capital of the galaxy, which is heavily shown in the prequel films, being this almost New York-esque metropolis that is home to important Star Wars locations like the Jedi Council, the Senate, and of course Dex's Diner. But instead of grabbing some Jawa juice, we head over to the Imperial Security Bureau, or the ISB, who just won't let the rebels be. They're gonna shut them down on Aldani. Yeah, I'm probably getting fired for that one. Anyway, the ISB is the Central Intelligence and Law Enforcement Agency for the entire Galactic Empire, started shortly after the New Order rule of the Emperor, with a handful of agents growing exponentially in size as they now run a majority of the galaxy. This is where we are introduced to a new character of Debra Miro in what appears to be an Imperial briefing room. It showcased that the Imperials are wearing all white, lack any sense of fashion or color, showing how order is maintained with no personality allowed or stepping out of line. It's gathered through these debriefings that the ISB isn't necessarily involved in law enforcement, but rather healthcare, stomping out germs, being the remedy for anyone or anything that may cause a disruption. This obviously being a metaphor for viruses and how they view the rebels. Their ideology spreads like a cancer to the Imperials, constantly growing and infecting people to turn against their oppressors, which we saw an inkling of in the first 3 episodes of Andor. The conflict on Ferrix is brought out by Lieutenant Supervisor Blevin, played by Ben Bailey Smith, aka Doc Brown. No. He's actually a rapper and comedian. Some of his stuff's not bad. Anyway, he discusses how the incident was botched by the corporate authority agents, with Ferrix and the entire Morlana system now shifting control from the Corpos to permanent Imperial authority, aka stormtroopers be patrolling the streets. Hide your kids, hide your wife, they snatching up everyone. There's a final tease from one of the Imperial officers mentioning that there has been an increase in construction shipments to the planet of Scarif. Haha, got a nice Rogue One tease, folks, because Scarif is where the finale of that film takes place, transmitting the Death Star plans to the rebels, and also where Andor's story comes to a close. Yeah, he dead.
Spoiler alert.
Back on Aldani, Andor cleans up, shaving his beard, which both ironically makes him look a lot more like his wanted hologram from the previous episodes, but also symbolizes that he is back on the path of scum and villainy, and in a sense, he's breaking the law in the eyes of, the Empire once again. Taking on the name of Clem for the next 5 days to protect his identity, which is a nice callback that I completely missed in episode 3, but Clem is the name of his adoptive father that we saw looting the ship with Marva. Further conversation with Luthen reveals him handing over a kyber crystal to Andor as essentially a down payment for the job. Now, if you're a big fan, you know kyber crystals are what powers lightsabers. A Jedi's apprenticeship saw them searching for one themselves, commonly on planets of Elam or Jeddah, bonding with the Force user to give the crystal and lightsaber its signature color. The kyber having a sky blue color rather than it being clear, and Luthen firmly saying that he wants it back when this whole job is done and over with, makes me believe that he could be an ex-Jedi. Wouldn't that be a twist of fate? Hey, it could happen. We've seen crazier things in the Star Wars universe. There's a hooded figure making their way to the ship, similar to Obi-Wan, but also wearing a poncho that looks very similar to the ones that Cal Kestis wears in the Jedi Fallen Order video game. I honestly thought it was going to be Kestis at first, but hey, we're one step closer to getting him in live action, folks. I'm just curious, who would actually play this character? I mean, He doesn't really look like anyone. Also, the cockpit of Luthen's ship also has a striking similarity to the Millennium Falcon, especially when jumping to hyperspace earlier. It is interesting because Vel, I completely forgot. This is Vel Sartha, leader of the ragtag group of people Luthen has kind of put together for this mission, which has apparently been going on for 5 months, or there's been 5 months of planning, so it is pretty jarring to bring Andor into the mix, essentially 3 days before it's supposed to go down. Anyway, Vel does mention Aldani used to be this robust countryside before the Empire took control roughly a decade earlier, expanding that Aldani is the perfect hub for distribution.
Aldani has the unfortunate quality of being close to nothing and not very far away from everything. It's the perfect hub for distribution, if one were trying to take over the galaxy.
Vel mentions that there are still a few shepherds, nature lovers, mystics, dead enders, guys named Frank in the hills, which makes me want to say that Jedi or potentially Force-sensitive individuals are hiding out on this planet. Meaning the dilapidated structures could have been old Jedi lodging, and the stone temple that the crew mentions in their plan at the end of this episode is an old Jedi temple. Much like everyone in this operation is told only the information that they need, it is revealed that Andor is on this job and they're stealing the entire quarterly payroll from the Imperials. That's it. But it actually is from a huge Imperial armory and garrison. Again, carrying similarities from Rogue One here, this feels like a suicide mission, as we now see the planet is patrolled by TIE fighters from the air bases close by, adding to the minimal success of this job and the fear that the Empire has over the cowarding people in the galaxy. Luthen is now off to Coruscant, and we learn a bit more about his character as we see this literal transformation of scoundrel, untrustworthy, seed of the rebellion to this fancy pants, fake smiling elite wearing gold rings and bracelets, acting very regal and snooty with his hand movements like, "Ooh, look at me, I'm so fancy." It's a massive transformation from episode 3 and kind of reminds me of Bruce Wayne's playboy persona in the Nolan Batman trilogy, but after this transformation, we can see that this persona is actually the fake one, as the fake joy is entirely sucked out of him when he's done and ready. There's 2 blue moons on the horizon of Aldani that look like the dual suns of Tatooine, as we're then introduced to a couple of the other rebels on this crazy mission. Both Karis Nemik and Arvil Skeen. I know it's Star Wars, but man, I cannot pronounce these names. Give me a Bill or a Ted, I don't know, something easy. But they are played by Alex Lothar and Eben Moss Backrack, who I thought would just be yelling about Italian beef orders because I just saw him in The Bear and Chef's Kiss. Nemik was caught sleeping, saying if Saw Gerrera was there, he would have his head on a pike. Saw Gerrera, who we know is played by Forrest Whitaker, is a major player in the rebellion and known for his guerrilla tactics and aggressive approach to fighting the Empire. In live action, he's in Rogue One, but also featured throughout a lot of Star Wars properties, from the Clone Wars to Rebels, The Bad Batch, along with a handful of novels. So it seems that these pockets of rebels are isolated, but do have contact with one another, or at least knowing of the major players in the game. At camp, the other two members that make up the small group of rebels are Terramin Barkana and Cinta Cass, as it further shows that every member of this group is a bit shocked by the arrival of Andor, and that keeping information from one another may be the downfall of this upcoming operation. Karn appears to be discharged from the corporate authority ever since it was totally taken over by Imperial control, and I'm taking this situation as almost a dishonorable discharge in a sense, because he's returning home. It has this depressing feeling with his mother slapping him when he returns. She does have a very similar hairstyle to what Leia is wearing in The Last Jedi, meaning that hairstyles have not changed in about 40 years. I thought for sure Karn would play a much bigger role climbing the ranks, so I'm curious if he's out of the corporate sector, but going to join the Imperial Academy straight up in the next few episodes. Luthen's day-to-day persona is finally revealed like we thought. He is this rich elite being an antique dealer, dealing with some rare and unique items. Just a handful of items around his shop is the Beskar Mandalorian armor that we've seen old Mando wear in the Mandalorian series, a small dagger that looks similar to the Mortis dagger from the Clone Wars, a Gungan shield from the Battle of Naboo in the back. I bet you're thinking, Misa did not see that one. So, yeah, you're welcome. But also these stone glyphs look similar to the meditation circles from Jedi Fallen Order. But going one further, these two that have the fist and the open hand look like they are straight out of the Fallen Order's upgrade skill tree. A circle with the symbol in the middle. Now, either of these two symbols are actually upgrades in the game, but they are leaning heavy into that Jedi Temple lore and the symbols from the game. It could be a long shot, but...
Never tell me the odds.
Meeting with Luthen is Mon Mothma, who again is a high-ranking member of the rebellion that we do see in the later films, featured to be in the planning of the events in Rogue One and also the Battle of the Death Star Part 2, as she opposed the policies of the Supreme Chancellor Palpatine as the leader of the Galactic Senate's loyalist faction. So we're getting her at a time where she's still pulling power from the Senate while also trying to spark the rebellion on the side. Through conversations here with Luthen, we discover that their relationship is very secretive, not really like a cheating affair type thing, but rather, she is bankrolling the operations of Luthen that he has going on with Andor and the others. It sounds like they've been planning this in private for a while, but it's a losing cause, almost 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Now, one interesting thing Mothma suggests is that she's found another person that she thinks she can bring into the circle to help with the rebellion. Who is this mystery man or mystery woman? Maybe is only a guess. My first thought was Leia, but at this time in the story, she's only 14 years old, so not sure how much of an influence she may actually have. And I get it. Padme was only 14 years old in Phantom Menace, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Times a changin', folks. The government's run by some creepy man with unlimited power. Wait a minute. My guess is Bail Organa, who then will eventually bring Leia on board. It feels like the right way to usher in and kind of connect these two stories. Either way, I am assuming that this Luthen relationship will continue through the show because she only takes the artifact on loan, and she will essentially be back at some point, with Luthen saying,
"But I trust you'll have the courage to turn back. It should be a bit much."
My guess is that after the Andor mission goes sideways, they go into full panic mode with the ISB slowly breathing down their necks, and their plans are foiled because of the increasing number of Imperial spies that are keeping a close eye on Mothma. Lastly, Lieutenant Gorn is the final member of the attack force to be revealed, an inside man working for the Empire, arriving on a speeder bike that looks and sounds eerily similar to the speeders from Endor. Probably tuned for more lush and forested areas than the desert speeders that we've seen in, other series. Anyway, they run through the plan, which is a drastic contrast to what we've seen the Rebels debriefing stations look like in other films and projects. The original trilogy saw this clean, pristine debriefing with screens, while Rogue One's took a step back, still having a holodeck to explain everything, while Andor's is made of sticks and rocks, showing the shoestring budget that they are working with and how this job is going to be pulled off with pure skill and honestly a lot of luck. Vel goes over the plan, mentioning the Empire took control of this sacred land roughly 13 years earlier, claiming it for the Emperor. Name drop, we got a name drop here. The Empire was interested in the caverns because of their unique storage capabilities, along with the vault being built into the cavern. The first thing that came to mind when they were talking about the Emperor and vaults is the Emperor vaults that he had hid all around the galaxy of what showed up in the final mission of Star Wars Battlefront 2. So this could be one holding more than just the payroll credits. There could be something else in there for them to steal. Anyway, they run down the plan, saying that they will bust into the armory, head into the vault, with Andor essentially piloting a flying shipping crate out of a single runway in and out of the vault and fly to safety with the payload. Andor claims that this is honestly impossible. You know what, guys? This isn't going to work. I am out of here, because the TIE fighters will be on them in minutes. When then Gore reveals the second phase of the plan, saying that he will have a moment to escape in what is called the Eye of Agamotto. No. That's not right. The Eye of Aldani, which is a massive meteor shower illuminating the entire sky, allowing them a small window to escape. That's the plan. It sounds awful, but that's the plan, as Andor further studies the specs to catch up on everything to get prepared for the next day. Now, I'm expecting the next couple of episodes to be this explosive Ocean's 11 heist playing out, similar to the trench run in A New Hope. It's a suicide mission, but a small task force can probably pull it off. However, there's going to be some sort of hiccup or information that is kept from Andor, as he's the one to be blamed for all of it. Again, going back to what Luthen mentioned to Vel, Andor is essentially a mercenary, therefore he is disposable. Though I don't think Luthen has any ill intentions, they need a fall guy. In case the Empire is on their scent, Andor will end up being the one that is this guy. And he'll wind up in some Imperial detention center, either learning more information that he didn't know before, finding more rebels for the cause, or somehow escaping. My Republic credits now are on him escaping. Although I enjoyed the origin story set up the first 3 episodes of Andor, Episode 4 seems to be getting the ball rolling in where and what the whole main mission of Andor is going to be. Not only is it perfectly setting up this Rogue One suicide mission aspect, but building out the core cast into their own micro storylines is what's really kind of hooking me through this right now. Seeing the problems Luthen, Mothma, Dedra, Karn are all dealing with, and how it's going to be tying back to the main mission here has me intrigued. It feels like there's some real stakes here, with each of the characters having their own motivations in the Star Wars world. That is a tongue twister. While exploring everything from the feeble rebels to the rich elites, the power-hungry politicians, and the corrupt empire. But obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Andor Episode 4, and if this series is going that Rogue One direction that you were hoping for. Now get this, we are currently running a competition, giving away 3 copies of Thor Love and Thunder on the 15th of October, and all you have to do to have a chance of winning this is like this video, make sure to subscribe with notifications on, and drop your comments on this episode of Andor. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of last month's drawing are on screen right now. If that's you, message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, be sure to check out some of our other videos right over there, whether it be our House of Dragon breakdowns or Rick and Morty Season 6 coverage. With that out of the way, thanks for sticking through this video. I've been Jared, and I gotta go study some Aldani phrases, so I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and peace.